Hello, folks. Welcome to the Genuinely Interested podcast. My name is Roy Bensby, and I'm your host. And I want to explain a little bit about the podcast before we start the show this week. This podcast is an opportunity for me to speak with some of the most interesting people I know that I can find on the internet. So, either with amazing talents or achievements or just unbelievable life stories or invaluable insights into areas that they have dedicated their lives to studying. I sit down with these amazing individuals from all across the world. Really, I've talked to people from Slovenia to the Czech Republic to Australia to countries in Africa and South America, really just all over the world. And I try to ask them the questions that will hopefully help you extract something valuable or learn something new or just get inspired by. And I do hope that you do get inspired by these talks with some sort of a call to action, maybe change something that you wanted to change for a while, or even just enjoy, detaching from the world for an hour and listening to some great conversations. So whatever it is that you get from this, I do hope that you extract something from it and enjoy the conversations. All these episodes are available on all the major podcast platforms, iTunes, Spotify, Google, and the rest of them. You can also find the episodes on my website, which is roybensv.com. You can find a lot of other information about me there as well, from photos to a little bit more insights into who I am, if you're interested. And, you can always go to social media. I'm on Twitter and Instagram. You can find me there. I'm pretty active on both those platforms, although the only ones I have. And I try to post regularly so you can stay up to date. And also be sure to put your email on the website. I shoot emails out with updates, news, any new current information that I have will be sent via those emails and social media platforms. So yeah, make sure you're in the loop. Thanks for tuning in, guys. This week we have Billy and Sierra. And similar to an episode I had a couple of weeks back with Bo and Brandy, Billy and Sierra have been living on boats for the last, I don't know how many years, but a good amount of time. And essentially, they're a little bit different. They've been switching out boats, working on some, fixing them up. And like Billy said in the beginning, they bought a boat early on for $500 and then again later on for $800. So they're really good at buying an old boat that's a fixer-upper and doing that, fixing her up, and then either living on it, sailing on it, and just really enjoying that type of lifestyle. And more, I've been going down this rabbit hole of alternative lifestyle, digital nomads, people who are, living in different countries or on a boat or just something out of the norm for a while now, because I guess COVID is one factor, but I've always been interested in it. And I think we're seeing COVID now expand people's horizons, people's way of thinking as to how they should live. And if they don't need that physical proximity to the workplace, there's really no reason for them not to explore different places, different lifestyles, potentially living in a RV, living on a boat, flying all over the world, just different ways. Like if you don't have to go to the office in the morning, why not go and look into buying a house in the mountains somewhere in Utah or in New Hampshire or wherever you want? So there is definitely this massive trend happening right now of people, an exodus of sorts, that people are leaving the city and going and exploring these new ways. And out of all the bad things that have happened in 2020, this is probably one of the better things that have happened. Obviously there's a downside to that with economies failing in the places of the, where people are leaving, usually the big cities. But it is what it is. Other people are going to benefit. Other areas are going to benefit from it. So you have to take the good with the bad. And I think it's a paradigm shift that's happening, and people are exposed to new places, new ways of living. So I think overall, it's a big plus for people's consciousness, for people's mental health, just being out and about more and exploring more and seeing new things. I think that's a massive education and a massive shift in the way we see things. It was a lot of fun talking to Billy and Sierra. We covered a lot of topics from they live daily, what their routines are, how their dog adjusted to the boat life, and sounded like she adjusted pretty well. And it seems like Bo and Brandy's dog did too. So it seems like most dogs seem to adapt to that lifestyle pretty well. And they're super adaptable wherever you'll go. As long as you're with them and you treat them well and you love them, they're happy to come on board metaphorically and physically. We talked about what it's like now that they're off the boat. They're waiting for their new boat, which should come, I guess, sometime soon. And then hopefully they can get back out in the water where they really enjoy and love being. And it was interesting to see how, and this is a narrative and a story I keep seeing, is that you don't necessarily need to be a world-class captain or salesperson. You just have to have the determination and some sort of a know-how, and know that if you keep learning at it and keep trying new things, you will learn. If you have the eagerness to learn, you'll be able to eventually get to a high enough level. And if you look at the videos, Billy and Sierra, they really know their stuff on the boat. We also discussed the ways in which they sustain themselves with food, which is mainly spearfishing. And it's really interesting. I don't want to give too much away, but it's going to be on the episode. But the way that they eat is probably one of the most, if not the most sustainable way. Spearfishing, where there's no collateral damage. And yeah, we touch on that in the episode. Make sure you stay tuned all the way to the end. We even talk about the way in which sailors back in the day had to navigate not having any of the electronics and digital access that we have nowadays, and how hard that must have been, and how interesting it would be to do something similar like this today. I know I couldn't get from where I am to 10 minutes away by car if I didn't have some sort of navigation equipment with me. And I think we're all extremely reliant on it, and it definitely made our life easier. But everything that's good comes with a little bit of a touch of bad. So it's a little bit of a crutch. We kind of lost some of our intuition, some of our know-how, and we've offloaded that onto these little machines that have made our lives substantially easier. And they give us access and time to put more of our efforts into the things we love. At least that is the precipice on which some of these things and tools were built. I had a blast talking to Billy and Sierra. They're up in Maine right now, and actually not too far away. Maybe we'll have to drive up and visit them at some point. But I really had a blast talking to them. I enjoyed the conversation. I enjoyed learning about the lifestyle, and I'm starting to get inspired by all these people I'm talking to. Maybe I'll have to buy a boat one day soon and sail sail somewhere. I should probably learn sailing first, though. So without further ado, here are this week's guests, Billy and Sierra. Enjoy the podcast.
The Genuinely Interested Podcast.
Billy and Sierra, how you guys doing?
Good. Thank you so much for having us on with you.
Yeah, thanks, Roy.
Yeah, man, I've been wanting to talk to you guys for a while. Recently, I've really been into this. I think probably a lot of people, because of COVID and the way work is happening, but into this alternative lifestyle, into a different way of looking at how we can live. And I think I've always been interested, but I think recently I've gone more into these rabbit holes where I'm like, is there another way? And you see like countries, right? Like there was some country in the Caribbean, I forget, I think it was maybe Barbados, and then Estonia, and all these different countries offering like visas for digital nomads to come and work there, because you can actually work from anywhere nowadays. Like you can make money living on a boat or up in the mountains or in the city. And I just like the lifestyle, and that's why I wanted to talk to you guys today.
Oh, awesome. We've definitely lived a number of different ways on the water and on land, so we're excited to tell you all about it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool that there's places offering some incentives for they see the opportunity, because it is so true, especially now. Yeah, people can work from anywhere.
Yeah. There's I think it was Barbados. I could be mistaken, but they did a whole campaign. I saw in Estonia as well. And I mean, it's smart, right? Like, as long as I guess you get tested for COVID and you're fine, why not? Why not go work in these really great places? And obviously it's so alluring, right? Like, oh, work by the beach and the beautiful, oceans and the sunsets and I don't know, Mai Tai and a coconut. It's just whatever. It's like, yeah, I could do that. Why would I want to live in a little apartment in New York City where I can be working by the beach doing the exact same thing on my computer?
Absolutely.
It's true.
So how did the whole thing start for you guys? I mean, how long have you been actually, so now you don't live on a boat, but up until recently you lived on a boat, right? For a long time.
Yeah, so we're actually in between two different boats right now because living on the boat is definitely our favorite thing in the world to do. So we're selling one and we're in the process of buying another. So right now we're actually living in a truck camper, but you start with how it all started because
Yeah, I guess if we want to do the whole story, I'll keep it short. But
No, keep it long. Don't worry about it. We got all the time in the world.
I guess I've always been into boating. Sierra has two growing up. She grew up in Florida, Jupiter, Florida. I grew up in Long Island, New York. And I lived for the summers, all through middle school and high school. And we always went out on the boat. And I guess, I just lived for it. When I got into college, I became an ocean lifeguard. And me and my friends and some of my family helped me fix up an old houseboat. And we took this houseboat across to Fire Island where we lifeguarded. And we just kept it anchored over there. And me and my friends would stay on it, during the summer. And that was like our beach house. And we would lifeguard during the day and, hang out at night over there. And, it was a great lifestyle. It was only 2 months out of the year, as you know. So from there, once I graduated college, I decided I want to try to do something like this, year round. And a few years after college, I bought this. I was getting my foot in the door as a teacher because teaching is a really good career on Long Island. So I was an aide at like a behavioral and special ed school, and just started to take my prereqs for teaching and stuff like that. And I bought this old small sailboat that I started to fix up, and I was starting to near completion with it, a year later. And I said, you know what, I can't get into this teaching career right now because if I do, I'm never going to let it go. So, I quit that job. And a week before Thanksgiving, back in like 2013 or something,
2014,
a while ago, I set sail south and alone. And it was cold. It was wet. I learned a lot. I barely knew how to sail, really. And I made it, basically, long story short, I made it all the way down to Florida. Things were breaking. My engine broke down in Jupiter. I was looking for a town to stop and, take a break and start working and save up some more money again. And when my engine broke down in Jupiter, that's where I stopped, and I started walking around town looking for a job. And Sierra worked at a kite and paddleboard shop there. And, that was one of the places I applied because I was a kiteboard instructor and I was into paddleboarding and stuff like that. And and that's where I got a job.
And he's been stuck with me ever since.
Sierra and I were friends for a good chunk of time before and we worked together and stuff. And took it from there.
And then one point I want to get across, because a lot of people think you have to have a lot of money to be able to live this alternative lifestyle. But for that first houseboat, how much did you buy it for?
Yeah, I bought it for $500. It was
really
completely gutted. It was dirty. It was disgusting, but we rebuilt it and we cleaned it up. And it wasn't a perfect Bristol finish boat, but it was, we made it livable. We made it look pretty decent on the outside, so it's not an eyesore. And and it was great.
And then Tula, how much did you pay for Tula?
But I found this old small pocket cruising sailboat in a boatyard, and I noticed it year after year just sitting there. So I went to the boatyard and made an offer, and basically I told them I'd take it off their hands for them. And they said, well, how about you just give us $800 and we'll put it in the water for you? And I said, all right, deal. And I spent a year fixing it up, and yeah.
So if you're willing to learn how to do the work yourself, you can definitely do this kind of living on any kind of budget, really.
Yeah, it takes a lot of work. And I always say, like, if you have a really good career, a really good job, like you might be better off spending your time doing that job than, doing this other work. But then you don't get the benefits of like learning how all your systems work on the boat and
Or
learning
the
how to repair things. And they always break
Yeah.
the boat. So it's a balance, but
Yeah, I mean, I when I look at the videos, I'm dumbfounded at how much you know. I'm like, you seem like you're I don't know, like you have a background in mechanical engineering or something. Like you know so much about how to fix things. Same with the car, same with the boats. Me, if it was me and my wife on that boat and and things broke down, I mean, we would just die. I have no idea how to fix things. It would just be very sad story. So, I mean, did you have a background, or is this something you literally just learned as you went and maybe looked up some YouTube videos?
yeah, that's basically it. I mean, the only background I had was some tech classes in high school, which were amazing. I recommend those for anyone, any high school kid interested in this kind of stuff, woodworking and plastics and metal shop and stuff like that. And then just, my dad worked on boats, nothing professional, just basic like sanding and, maybe a little fiberglass and stuff like that.
And lots of trial and error.
But for
Yeah.
me, it's just, it's you find a problem, you research. All the answers are online basically, and, find the solution and then, attack it. And that's why it was great for us, starting with these old broken down boats, because you really can't lose. Like, it's not like we have a brand new boat that you can mess up and make worse. Like these things,
Yeah.
you can only make better and learn along the way, which was amazing.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a passion project, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So, I mean, when you started this, was this, I mean, so you guys met in Jupiter, Florida, and then you start talking, or maybe, you start dating, you start forming a relationship. And then at what point do you think to yourselves, all right, we just want to go live on a boat for the rest of our lives? Was this kind of just an organic evolution of things, or was this a concrete decision on your part?
It kind of just emerged, really. Like, we had been dating for a while, and then
And the whole time I was still living on that small sailboat in Florida while I was working, at the shop and stuff. And you were living at your parents' house.
But for the longest time, we had never gone out sailing. Like, you were kind of just like planted. And I totally get it now, because you had spent months and months sailing in the cold by yourself. Like, I wouldn't want to leave. Anytime I would want to have some sort of a planted life. But then I had grown up going over to the Bahamas, and I kept telling Bill, I was like, you have this boat, like, why don't we go over there? So eventually, like, we packed it all up, got all ready, and we headed over, except we didn't make it the entire way. We made it like halfway, and we literally weren't moving. And it was just another learning experience. Like, we didn't plan the right weather. We didn't plan a lot of stuff we should have. So we ended up turning around and going to the Keys, and we spent like 2 months sailing around the Keys, and it was awesome. We definitely learned that we needed a bigger boat.
Yeah, that was basically Sierra's like first time on a sailboat, first time living on a boat like long term. And yeah, it was a pretty small boat. It was only a 26-foot monohull sailboat, which is pretty small. It was basically like camping.
Yeah, there was like no bed, there was no shower, there was none of that.
Yeah.
So we got back from that trip, and I was still in college, and you had wanted to go back up lifeguarding, and you're like, well, you need an internship. Like, my cousin works, he's getting his PhD. He definitely needs an intern. So why don't you come up to New York? And one of our friends saw this really good deal on a boat, and he's like, maybe you guys could like try to fix up that one. So it was, we tried to find boats that are like listed kind of under the radar, but have like a good pedigree. So we know we can fix them up and then hopefully make some money in the long run. And that's what we did. One of our good friends, Brian, he had a friend who knew somebody who was selling a boat, and we're like, okay, well, let's go look at it. And we bought it.
Yeah. So we sold Tula down in Florida. We bought this old trawler up in Long Island, and we fixed it up. And that was our next boat.
How is it going from, even for me, when I live in Connecticut now, and when I have to go back to New York now, it's such a mind fuck. It's like, you from going from trees and hiking trails and seeing animals in the backyard to just concrete jungle. It takes me like a week to readjust. Like, do you feel the same? Like, going off of, just being out ocean, just beautiful skies, just, the beach, everything, the freedom that affords you. And then you go into this concrete jungle. Does it take a while to kind of adjust back, at least mentally?
Definitely, definitely, definitely. And it kind of, for us, it's like living on the boat, like in these islands, and then coming back to where you can like go to the grocery store and like have a car and like there's fast food and you don't have to like catch your own fish. It's definitely like major shock. It's nice for a little while, but then we always crave to like get away from it.
Yeah, and it's, for us, it's probably not so much of an adjustment. I mean, it's wild, it's different, but we're always doing different things, going to different places. So we're used to change. But it is surreal sometimes, like, especially like coming back to Florida after months out in the Caribbean, or, last time we were there for over a year, the Caribbean and Bahamas and stuff. It's wild coming back to like American civilization.
And I mean, do you have a plan? And, do you just kind of wing it as you go? Like, let's say now you're waiting for the new boat, right? And you have a plan, all right, for the next 2 years or a year, we're going to do X, or you're just like, you know what, let's take it. Let's see where we want to go. Just organic.
A little bit of both, because we have to plan for seasons. Like on the boat, we have to know where we're going to be for hurricane season. And with the truck right now, we're really kind of just basing it off of where we want to be for the holidays. Because last year we were on the boat in the middle of nowhere, like by ourselves. And this year we really want to spend it with our families. So right now, those are really the only two things: Thanksgiving in New York, Christmas in Florida, and then kind of wide open. We want to try to make it to California, but...
And in the past, it was kind of, we planned around work a bit. We were still working seasonally. So we lifeguarded, and Sierra did an internship, and then she lifeguarded up in Long Island in the summer. And that's what I always did, Long Island in the summer. I used to teach kiteboarding in Florida in the winter, and then we travel in between. And that kind of, we made our plans according to that. But very big picture plans, not so much like every detail. We can't do that. We always
we try, and then you like get set on a plan, and then it changes, and then you get upset. So we just learn to
go
not
with the
really,
flow.
yeah.
We'll make tentative plans. We always have, plan B and plan C, and, we just go with it.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of humbling, right? You realize that you're not in charge. Like even now, I think so many people had like 2020 plans, right? Like, oh, my goals for 2020. And then it's like, oh shit, like none of that is actually going to come into fruition with what happening. And I think for you guys, when you're out on the ocean and you have weather and all these different logistics that you have to take care of, you have to go get food, you have to fuel. I know there's something that breaks in the motor. So there's so many factors that come into play, and it's kind of humbling. You're like, all right, I'm actually not fully in charge of what happens. And maybe, I don't know, it's a kind of a release to know that you're not in charge.
It's true, definitely. Yeah, I could see for some people that might be really tough, but I think we do a really good job of just understanding what we can control, what we can plan realistically. And, as long as we have our backup plans and, we don't set things in stone, we just go with it, and it's not too hard for us.
And that's come with time, though, because we used to not do that. We used to have a plan, and we'd do anything in our power to make that plan happen, only to realize we just made ourselves absolutely miserable when we could have just stopped, turned around, and done it the next day when the weather was clear. So
especially talking about weather.
It's definitely come with 6 years of learning to go with the flow, but I think we're getting better at it.
Do you guys want to switch to doing van life for a while?
We're doing it now just because we've always wanted to see like the US, and right now we just have a really good opportunity because Adrenaline is for sale. We wanted to leave her in a really good spot where people could come look at her. She's clean. She's moved out of.
And Adrenaline's your boat, right? The boat.
Yeah, Adrenaline is our current catamaran, and she's, like I just said, she's for sale, and we're having another one built. The biggest news of our lives in a really long time. Like, we've worked really hard, and now we can officially like buy a brand new boat, but it takes a year to build. So we figured in that year, we might as well explore our own country, especially with COVID. Like, a lot of countries are not letting people from the US in, or people from many, many other countries in. So we figured it was a good opportunity.
Wow. How excited are you about this? The first time you're going to have like a brand new boat?
Yes.
Yeah. Besides our dinghy, which was brand new, this is the first time we'll have a big brand new boat. It's going to be wild. We're really excited about it, especially because it's such a it's modern. It's got really nice living space, and it still has some good performance as a sailing catamaran.
So before we talk about this, should we go back? Because we skipped two boats. We skipped the trawler and Adrenaline. Should we talk about them a little bit?
Sure.
Yeah.
Is that good?
Yeah. Go ahead.
So after we sold Tula, we bought, like we said, a trawler in New York, and it was a motorboat. And you had been on a sailboat. We made this big change, and there was a lot more living room in this boat than Tula. It was 34 compared to 26, but we still did a lot of work to her. She had a lot of rotted wood. But it was awesome. We took it all the way down to the Bahamas, all the way up to Nantucket, like on one single engine, and
big single diesel engine.
And we towed a 50-year-old Boston whaler.
That was our tender.
Yeah.
16 foot.
And we just were kind of on the working our seasonal jobs and looking for internet to upload these videos that we had just started. And it was a blast, but you learned a lot on that boat too, because you had to redo the whole transmission and all that kind of work. You want to go into that a little bit?
Well, I mean, I just want to say that, like, yeah, that was a cool boat. It had some character. It was like these old trawlers have these really, really neat look. They're big single diesel engines. So we always look for these boats that have what we call character. I don't really know how to explain it, but they have a bit of a pedigree, and they're just cool boats. So that was one of them, and we fixed her up really good. And we sold her a couple of years ago, three years ago now, a little over maybe, up in Rhode Island, and then right after that, we found this old broken down catamaran that also.
Well, before that, when we were selling the trawler, we had planned for a while that we were going to sell the boat and get a van or a truck or anything and drive down through Central and South America. Like, we had planned and saved for that for over a year, because we just figured we were on boats for a little bit. Why not try land? And then, like, the day we were selling the boat, like the day you got the check, you're like, are you sure you want to get off the water? And I was like, well, I had been on a catamaran before, and I knew they were like super nice. I was like, if you can find us a catamaran, like, I'll stay. And he searched and searched and searched and found like the most like boat that needed the absolute most work. Not a usual catamaran, but she was perfect for our first catamaran. Absolutely. And we bought her at a really good deal, and we fixed her up for literally 3 years and sailed her to beautiful, beautiful places. And we learned a lot on that boat.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I saw the new one that you got, and it was beautiful. It's absolutely amazing. It's like a little home on water.
Exactly. And she was, we realized the difference between the motorboat and the sailboat. Like, we sailed thousands and thousands and thousands of miles and have spent under $500 in fuel for the past 3 years. Like, it's a crazy difference. And we've been able to go a lot farther, a lot faster. And we're definitely catamaran people from here on out, I would say. Right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's amazing. I've been on one once. I did a trip with my friends. I have a friend who has a catamaran. I don't know all the specifics like you guys. I just know it was like big enough for like 4 guys to be on it. And we took it from Israel to Greece, and that took about 3 days, I think.
Oh,
and then we kind of went between like the Greek islands. And honestly, it was one of the most unique experiences I've ever had. Even though the whole thing was just about a week or so, maybe 8 days. It was just such a different way to travel and to see things and experience things. Like, you can't do that. Like when you usually travel, it's on a plane, and then you get in a taxi or on a bus, and you go to the places that you want to see, and then you do whatever there is. But here it's just, you see it literally from the other side. You see it from the water, and you see places just impossible to see if you're not on a boat.
Oh yeah, 100%. It is. It is such a stark contrast to different ways of traveling.
Yeah, but it was also, first day I had such bad seasickness. I had to lie down. Is that something that you guys you don't have anymore, or is it something that maybe doesn't, or I don't know, just sometimes maybe pops up? Or
I still get it. You don't get it too much, but every once in a while I'll be sick in a bucket or just miserable. But you either deal with it or just don't tell me about it.
Yeah, I don't really get. We're not the best. Like, some people are real sensitive to seasickness. We're like in between. I'll feel, uncomfortable, for the first few days at sea or whatever. And then I get used to it. And you can do things like, I know some things affect me. Like if I am reading in a cabin or something like that, or, doing, we'll just avoid those activities or, whatever.
Try our best to avoid those activities.
So I wish we were some of the people who they don't feel it at all. Like, don't get seasick, because that sounds amazing.
Yeah, I don't know. And what would it be like? Choppy waters, or what would cause it?
Yeah, just the motion from choppy waters or big swell or anything like that.
For me, it's normally when it's rough and hot out, so you don't have like a breeze in your face. But yeah.
Yeah, no, it sucks, man. I remember I was like, because we had shifts that we were supposed to be up in what do you call it? Like where the
on watch?
Yeah, I guess on watch. And someone had to do my shift, because I was like, I can't do it. I have to lie down. I'm about to throw up. I just felt, but then after like the first day, it went away and it was fine. But we definitely got some choppy waters. But I'll never forget, like once we got to Greece after 3 days, and like you don't see anything for 3 days. It's just open water. And then we docked in this place, and literally the restaurant was on the thing. So like you go on land, and you're sitting in a table at a restaurant, and the guy's, bringing you food. I'm like, this is amazing. This is something I definitely want to do. And it sucks because I haven't been able to do it since. And, but it's definitely something, it's a bucket list. And that's why I think people are, at least for me, I'm so attracted to it, because I experienced it like just a little bit. And I know how much fun and how much of a different perspective you get on it. Like even just being on that boat for such a long time, I don't know, you tend to go a little bit introspective. You start to like look at things a little bit differently, have more time to yourself. Like, is that something that you guys experience as well?
Absolutely.
Definitely. Things definitely slow down. You definitely have more time to think, and especially once you get out of service, as much as you want to, surf through Instagram or whatever, you can't. And we might start reading or playing card games, and just thinking a lot, getting all to the list of stuff you have to get done on the boat, that you keep putting off.
And just like nature, like in the Caribbean, we'd wake up and there'd be like turtles like popping their head up like right next to the boat, and sharks and fish and all these birds. And it's amazing to wake up and realize that you're just on your own little private island.
Yeah. And I mean, like, you almost like, I don't know, it's in a way, it's almost like you've gone back in time, because if you're in big cities or whatever, if you're on mainland, for the most part, you see how people interact. It's either in groups, it's in families or friends, or even with them just by themselves. Like we're just on our phones all day long, and we're on the computer all day long, and there's less and less human interaction. But you're kind of forced to interact with the person. You're in a little boat. There's not a lot of room, and like you said, this connection isn't always available. So you're kind of forced to interact with the other person. Right? You're kind of forced to live in the moment more and be on less in the virtual world, right?
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
And we try to have because like you said, we work online, so we have to be connected the majority of the time.
When we can.
Yeah, but when we're not, it's definitely a huge difference, and it's my favorite. Like when we go and we don't have any service, it's the best, because nobody else gets to experience that, and we get to do it together.
That's cute. Yeah, I mean, has the internet kind of opened up the opportunity for you? Because, let's say, like you said, right now, because people think that this is only a lifestyle for people who are rich, right? But like you said, you can buy both $500, $800, but you still have to have income. And maybe 20 years ago, the people who could do it were people who were more wealthy, because they had that income, so they could buy the boat and then they could live off the income they have. But now with the internet, young people who maybe don't have too much money, they can kind of do what you guys do, right? They can buy a boat, fix it up, and then post videos or create content or do whatever they want via the internet. So I'm sure that's something that do you see more and more people your age maybe trying this lifestyle? Because I see it a lot with YouTube and Instagram. You see like van life, boat life, digital nomads, vloggers traveling the world and documenting and I mean, it's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, most of the people, we become friends with and cruise with are still, a little bit older retired couples, but there are plenty of young people doing it. And uh, it's been amazing to hear everyone's story. Like, because we're curious, what people do, how they're able to do it. And,
Yeah.
one of our friends, he's an Australian, he's a welder, and he might fly back to Australia every other year or something to weld on an oil rig for a few months and then fly back to the boat and sail for another year. Or just recently, like he found a job in, one of the Caribbean islands working on yachts, welding different jobs for this company.
Wow.
Like there was all sorts of stories like that. His wife is a hairdresser. So she found a job in the Caribbean as well, just for, a few months while they save up. And, I mean, I guess that's not necessarily internet, but, yeah, even on the internet, like if you can just provide value for someone, whether it's teaching them something or entertaining them or inspiring them, if you can really provide that value, then there's potential to, make an income from that and be able to do it full time.
And not even in the whole vlogging world. There's also people that are like coders or computer techs or like any kind of thing where you just need really internets. Okay, give me an example. I know
One of our friends
is coding, or like
our friend Darren.
yeah, and
Graphic design, maybe, anything along those lines.
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, yeah. We met a friend who he started a company in, I think, Sweden, and he sold it. But he was just starting to work for them again remotely as a coder, while he was sailing around the Caribbean. So.
or Steph is an environmental consultant. Like she just needs internet and all these so many jobs that you're like, oh no, you need to be in an office. No, you can work remotely. Just like now, like with COVID, everybody's pretty much working from home,
Yep.
and you could do that on a boat as long as you have internet.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a paradigm shift. I feel like for all the bad that 2020 has caused, and it's caused a lot. I feel like the one mental liberating thing that has happened is people are not bound to geographical locations in order to have income anymore. I think people realize that shit, I don't have to live in New York, pay this absorbent amount of money to live in a little box. And I can actually, like you said, I can live on a boat, or I can, I don't know, go buy a massive house in Utah for the same amount of money. And I can look at the mountains when I wake up in the morning.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and I think the businesses also, are realizing it as well. Like I feel like the past few years, people have been, it's been kind of shifting in this direction a little bit. People have been starting to work from home a little more, and blah blah blah. But yeah, you're right. COVID is definitely just, it's now proving that it can be done, and it's proving it to the employees and I think the employers, the businesses. I bet a bunch of them are realizing that we don't really have to own this huge office space anymore. All our employees could be virtual, and that's so much less overhead. I think you're right. We're going to see a huge shift in that direction permanently.
Yeah, that's why I have heard people say that this is just, it's a wave and we're going to ride it out, and then people are going to go back. Because if, like, for example, if you go to Midtown Manhattan, where all the office space used to be, it's a ghost town. I don't know what the numbers are, but it's substantially less than what it used to be. And it kind of sucks on the one hand because there's a lot of businesses that dependent on those businesses running there, those office spaces, especially food, and I know other businesses in the area that depended on it. But on the other hand, it's like it's adapt or die, right? Like you have to figure out that, yeah, it's a new age, right? It's the internet age. Everything's online. All the businesses that are thriving are going to be online. Brick and mortar is, I mean, I'm sure it'll come back at some point, but I just don't ever see it going back to what it was. I just see it evolving and progressing more and more online.
Right, right. And you're right. Like there's going to be brick and mortar businesses still, and there's going to be offices still, but yeah, just probably never to the extent it's been, right?
Yeah, and that's just my opinion. Who knows? We'll see in 5 years how, what happens, but it just, Yeah, and I feel like the one thing that I feel bad that more than obviously everything that happened is horrific, but like I just feel like we've kind of lost trust in COVID, and you see this like people have lost trust in obviously the institutions, the media, the politicians, government, etc. But like even the interpersonal ones, like when I meet someone, there's this like, wait, should I shake your hand? Should I hug you? Should I kiss? Like no, should I? We keep distance. And that kind of sucks for me. It's like you can't, the interpersonal thing where you're almost scared to touch another person. Like that's for me, that kind of sucks because you want to hug your friends, you want to hug your family. And when you're, thinking, should I, shouldn't I, is this hug going to cause, could I be sick? I feel like that more than anything really, really hurts.
Definitely, yeah. Hopefully, at least with this virus, I don't know. I don't know what's going to be the end to it, but hopefully it does end.
And soon,
Sooner rather than later.
Do you guys get any kind of pressure from your family or friends to start a quote unquote normal life, to kind of get a house, get a mortgage, 9 to 5, all that stuff, or they're just cool with the lifestyle?
I think most of them are very cool. Your parents are like so on board. My parents are really on board too, but they miss us. Like my mom would be in absolute heaven if we literally just built a house in her backyard. And we miss them too, but I think everybody's on board. They love to see where we are. They love to see where we're going, and they love to come visit us. So they love it.
I think in the beginning, at least my parents, when I first started sailing, they thought it was, a temporary thing. And, that I would, get a job eventually and stuff like that. But we kind of created our own job. And now they, the success that we're having, and they know that we're going to be doing this in the long run. And they think it's really cool. All of them are really supportive.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I feel like the older generation, they have a bit of a hard time kind of understanding how do you make money from this YouTube stuff or this podcasting stuff. They it takes them a while, but once they understand, I mean, they probably see and follow all your videos, right?
Yeah.
They do. And it definitely, like you said, it definitely took my mom a lot longer because she's a teacher, like she's in the education system. And like, if I were to stay at home, I probably would be a teacher. But she's like, are you for the first couple of years, like, are you gonna get like a real job? And then she started watching the videos, and then she started following like other bloggers and like got excited about them. She's like, oh, like you're like the girl I follow on Instagram. And I'm like, okay. Like, and now they're kind of getting into it, and they like to see where it goes.
And I see the concern though, especially like when we were just starting it and people aren't familiar with it, because it's like, well, is this YouTube thing just a trend? Like, are you actually making money and blah, blah, blah. But like the fact of the matter is that we're not just able to earn income from this, but we're also teaching ourselves and practicing a lot of skills that we could take to, any other business we might want to start, between marketing and video editing and, telling a story, physically just working on boats or whatever. So, we are building, career skills if we ever were going to do something different.
Yeah. And I think you guys have such a niche, that not a lot of people have have deep knowledge on, right? And when you live it and when you have a community around you, if people are looking to get info on that niche, they're going to come to you, and then you can give them their expertise. So I feel like it's and again, this goes back to the internet. It's such an amazing tool to have to build a platform and expand on that niche. So whenever, people are, and we know, we're interested in digital nomads living on boat or anything in that realm, you're the people they're going to go to.
Yeah. And it feels really good to be able to provide that to help people and even inspire. Like when we meet people in person, like at boat shows and stuff, so many people say, we've inspired them to buy a boat. And,
really? Wow.
It's so cool to hear that. So we're glad that, that we can do that for people.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because I think, back in the day, we only had really TV and maybe like radio and those were the people that we looked up to, right? Like musicians and actors. But with the internet, now you have, young kids, or not even young kids, I guess everybody. And they kind of look up to or admire or follow YouTubers and TikTok stars and people with big, Instagram. There's people on Twitter that literally made, I forget what's that girl's name. She does like these Trump impersonations on Twitter. I forget her name, but basically she went from like early this year, she had, I think, like 0 followers or somewhere close to that. And now she's like at 2 million.
Oh, geez.
That's insane.
Yeah. And then she got her own special, I think, on Netflix. So you can literally build your brand online in a very, short amount of time. If I guess there's some luck, but if you have skills.
Yeah, you have skills and you work hard at it and you're consistent. I mean, I think those are the keys, really.
Yeah. How much time did you have a background in photo editing, taking video, all that stuff, or it's one of those things you also kind of learned as you went?
You were always interested in it.
I was always interested, not too much photos, but I did, like in high school, I took photography class, and we were lucky enough that our high school had a video editing class. So I took that as well, and it gave me a good base, like an understanding of like what a storyboard is, or different shots and stuff, just for the background. But yeah, 99% of it is just doing it and learning and doing it and getting better and practicing.
And back to the buy cheap boats and live on cheap boats, we, for the first, I don't know, maybe 3 years, used only our iPhone and continue to only use the free version of iMovie for editing. So there's nothing super fancy. Like now we have a different point and shoot camera, but not the most expensive by any means. Just kind of what works, and we try to always improve. But yeah, simple is sometimes better.
Oh, 100%. And there's argument to be made that, and I see this with startups, like they put out MVP, or they put up a early stage website or app or whatever web or product that they have. And for the most part, it's not great, but it doesn't matter because it's about what value you're adding to people. And as long as people can connect with whatever content or product that you have out there, you can gradually grow that and improve it. But you have to just, that nugget in the beginning has to just be something of value. And people just, people grow with you. I don't think people expect perfection straight away. They just want something they can connect with.
Right. And yeah, and that's true in our world as well. I think the reason that we, started to gain a bit of an audience is because people could connect with us because we were very natural. We didn't over edit things, and we kept things slightly raw, and yeah, people were able to connect with that.
So, maybe take me through what's kind of a regular day on the boat. You also have a dog with you, right?
We do.
Jetty?
Jetty.
What kind of breed?
She's a mix. We got her for a rescue. She's like an Australian cattle dog mixed with something or other. So she's about 38 pounds. She's a perfect boat-sized dog.
Yeah.
And she has been to over 11 countries and every second of it. So
she needs her own passport.
Yeah. Yeah.
She got one of the French countries. They issued these pet passports, so we got one.
Oh yeah. Dougie passport. That's awesome. And how is she? Is she adjusted well? She's fine?
She's good, yeah, on the boat. Like, she's definitely a boat dog. Like, right now we're in the truck camper, and she hasn't quite associated the camper with home. Like, if you say you want to go to the boat, like, she wants to go back to the boat. We're getting there. And I know she's going to love the new one. That's for sure.
Yeah. And like, she's, as far as the peeing and everything, I mean, I'm assuming when you guys dock, you probably just, go to the nearest beach or something a few times a day. But when you're off, sailing somewhere, she's adjusted?
Yeah, that's exactly right. This is the most common question we get asked, probably. Where's the dog go to the bathroom on the boat?
Yeah.
But you're right. Yeah, when we're anchored somewhere, close to shore, we bring her 2 to 3 times a day, long walks and go on the beach or whatever. But when we are at sea for multiple days at a time, we have trained her to go up on the trampoline. So she's able to, go on the trampoline, and then it just falls right through to the ocean, or just, if she poos, just kind of push it over. And that's
smart.
Well, she gets a little nervous. Like, if it's a rough out, it'll take her a little longer to go. But yeah, it works.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, they're so adaptable. It's unbelievable. Like, they're just wherever man is, dog will be next to him. it's incredible. Even my dog, not that anywhere near what you guys, but like I've been to so many different houses and countries and places, and my dog's been with me for 13 years now,
Yeah.
and he just adjusts everywhere we go. It takes him a day or two, and within a day or two, he's fine. Doesn't matter how small, how big, he's always good.
That's
That's awesome.
amazing.
Dogs are the best. That's for sure.
The best.
They're the best. They're the best.
So mini story. We're here in Maine, like we said, at my brother's house, and my family came to visit my mom, dad, and sister, and my brother has a dog. My sister has a dog. My dad has a dog, and then we had 4 dogs running around here the past few days. It's been hilarious. It's been such a good time watching them play and interact.
They all get along.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of them's a little older and a little grouchier, so he just barks at everyone. But yeah, they all get along.
How old is Jetty?
Jetty's 7.
Okay, perfect age.
Yep.
Yeah.
Still a puppy.
Yeah. But it's like more mature still. Like the 7 is prime because I know you have the friends and people and the couple that I had on the show a few weeks back, Bo and Brandy, and their dog I believe is like 12 or something along those lines, right?
I think he's almost 13. Yeah, Una. We love Una. Jetty and Una get along well too. They've had some sleepovers on the boat together, so they're good friends. We love Una.
That's funny. You should start like some sort of a dog community on boats type thing. Have like babysit. Oh yeah? Oh, there's a Facebook group for everything. So maybe take me through kind of what's a regular day on a boat. I'm assuming there's a lot of like filming, editing, maintenance, fixing, food, that kind of stuff.
Totally, yeah. And every day is a little bit different. I mean, we have our days where they're just straight up activity days. We're going on a hike, we're going spearfishing or fishing, we're just going exploring. And then we have our days where we literally are just sitting on the boat all day, just editing and getting all our emails done, stuff like that. And then sometimes we have a little bit of a mix. And
we try to kind of let the weather depict what our day is going to be done.
Yeah.
We're either, if it's nice and sunny, we're like, okay, and it's calm, we'll go dive. If it's nasty out, we'll be like, okay, it's a perfect day to sit in the boat all day long and just edit. So it kind of depends on the weather.
Yeah, so I guess we wake up, brush our teeth, eat some breakfast, or walk Jetty on the beach first and eat some breakfast, and then we'll get into it. We'll either get into some computer work, or we'll load up the dinghy with all our spearfishing and fishing stuff, and we'll just start heading out and exploring. And of course, we have the cameras with us, GoPros and our regular camera, and just kind of film what we're doing for that day. And in the Caribbean, there were a lot of great waterfall hikes and stuff like that. So we might plan something, like a big long waterfall hike. But in the Bahamas, we were always doing some sort of diving or something.
But we're generally, like, as good as that sounds, we're generally on the computer at least half the day, 6 days a week. And sometimes late into the night, sometimes super early in the morning. It's a full-time job on the internet, and especially like maintaining the boat, and then we have to go film the things that we're editing. So it's a big mix, but it's a fun mix. That's
sure. Yeah, and it's good for people to know. It's not like once you go on the boat, it's this tropical, heavenly dream that you just get to sit back and drink cocktails all day. It's work, and you still have to sustain yourself, and you still. I mean, what do you do for food? Do you fish for the most part, or do you kind of do half fishing, half maybe getting it from the islands?
It kind of depends where we are. In the Bahamas, the primary food that we're eating is fish. In the Caribbean, we're eating a lot of lobster. It depends on the area and how much fish is around. But
and we're catching all that ourselves, basically. But then...
Yeah, we still go to the grocery store. We try to go like once every 2 weeks and get as much like fruits and vegetables that we can. We have like a little freezer, so we'll put whatever we can in there, and then... hopefully catch the rest ourselves.
We're growing some sprouts on the boat because sometimes, like in the Bahamas, it's hard to get like fresh leafy greens over there. So just make one.
Yeah. And what do? You do spearfishing?
Yeah.
Or fishing, like rod and reel. We prefer spearfishing, but we'll do anything really.
But when we're sailing, we'll always be trolling a couple lures behind the boat, to catch some of the blue water fish. Just if they happen to be there, we'll catch some mahi or blackfin tuna or something like that. But then when we're in the Bahamas, we're generally spearfishing.
And in the Caribbean, the past year, our main food source was lobster.
Yeah, a lot of Caribbean lobster. Yeah.
Oh, how much better does it taste when you catch it and make it on the boat than like at a restaurant or like when you buy it from the supermarket?
Yeah.
It's so satisfying. It's the freshest you can get. Literally just pulled out of the water right there, like an hour ago.
And honestly, it makes going and getting food at a restaurant like really difficult because you get it and you're like, we made this better last week. Like, what?
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, it's I remember when we were this was the first for me, but we were on the boat. My friend, he caught this massive tuna, and I remember eating, and like the whole process was like it was like a little too bloody for me, but I remember when he made it for us and when we ate it, I still remember that as I can say it was one of the top 5 culinary events of my life. It was just, I've just never tasted anything like that. It wasn't even close to anything I've had at a restaurant or, bought from the supermarket. It wasn't even close.
Yeah. And it's fresh and that's amazing. It was straight from the sea.
I'm the same way. Like I'd much rather like all of these animals be alive, like in the ocean so we can go look at them. But I know like, especially spearfishing, it's the most sustainable way you could get any sort of food. So I know that we're doing it ourselves. We're doing it the right way. We're following the regulations. So it makes me feel good. And then, you don't have to go to the grocery store and buy a fish that you don't know how it was caught or grown.
Exactly.
Or
how old it is.
Yeah, because you never know, right? Like when they do industrial fishing, they'll just grab up anything in this massive net. And I just feel like this is probably the best way. Most people probably can't do it, but if you can, this is probably the best way to get your food.
Definitely. There's no bycatch, literally no bycatch. Even if you're fishing on a boat with rod and reel, you might have some bycatch, and that fish that you're not going to keep may or may not survive. But with spearfishing, you don't have that.
You don't always get something, but.
And how do you know? Because I saw one video where. I don't even know what fish this was, but you had gloves on because like I think you said like it's either poisonous or something about when you touch the fish something could happen.
Lionfish.
Yeah, like how do you have is this something that you researched or people told you or?
Really just growing up fishing, I guess, our parents, and I went to school for marine bio, so I know a lot of the fish.
Okay.
My test growing up.
Yeah.
But just an experience really. Like lionfish is one of those things where you hear about if you're going to go diving, and learning how to fillet and eat it. Actually, I just looked it up on YouTube. Really.
Yeah.
For me, a bit longer because I wasn't familiar with any of the fish down in Florida or the Bahamas or anything like that. So it was a learning curve for me. Like I would see, some bigger fish and then I'd try to remember what they look like and, ask Sierra or look it up in our fish book and identify them and then kind of learn what are the good eating fish and what are not, the good eating fish. So definitely a learning curve for me, but yeah. And so the lionfish they're everywhere down there and they're an invasive species in that part of the world. So you can, but they're really good to eat. So, as long as you don't get stuck with one of their spines, then, they're great. You're doing the environment a favor by killing them, and you're feeding yourself. So 2 wins all around.
So what, humans brought them over at some point or how did they get there?
I think if I can remember correctly from school, I'm pretty sure someone brought them over for like a big fish tank because they're pretty and they're in a lot of the fish tanks at like people's houses and restaurants.
Oh.
And I think someone let it go and they just exploded everywhere.
Yeah, it just took over because I don't think they have any natural predators. Really,
no, that's the other thing. They were trying to teach I saw an experiment where they were trying to teach sharks to eat them, and they would do it every once in a while, like if you were like cutting them up and sticking them in their face, but they weren't going and eating them on their own. So now they're trying to really educate people and let them know that you can eat them and how to care for them carefully and how to cook them. And now you can actually find lionfish on restaurants in Florida. I'm not sure if they've been anywhere else, but they're trying, and they do like lionfish derbies where you go out and spearfish them and whoever gets the most like wins a big prize. So they're doing a lot of work to let people know that.
And what do they kill? What species do they kill? The lionfish?
They eat all the baby reef fish. So they like hang out on the reef and eat all the juveniles, so
Like
they
everything.
can't grow. Yeah. So if they're like taking over a reef, that reef's going to be dead pretty quickly.
Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah.
I think they're probably making headway and getting rid of those.
Yeah,
things.
it's definitely making progress. And like a couple years ago, we would have seen lionfish everywhere in the Bahamas, but now this year it wasn't too bad. In the Caribbean, it wasn't too bad. But yeah, people are working on it.
Yeah, I feel like us humans, we always try to intervene and we think we're like smarter than nature. So we always do these things and then it always ends up hitting us back in the face. It was the famous story in Australia where they brought the toads over because I think they wanted them to eat some pest that was eating their crops. And then these frogs just multiplied to the point where they couldn't control them anymore. And now you have like half of Australia just overrun with these toads that they can't kill anymore. Yeah.
That's great.
I just listened to a podcast last night and they were talking about the same thing with wolves in Colorado. And, same sort of deal. They want to reintroduce wolves in Colorado because that's where they naturally were. But then, they're talking about, well, they're just going to explode in population and then cause all these problems that they had in the past. So, the unforeseen things.
And a crazy story along this line. I think it was in Australia as well. There was a type of starfish that was like harming the reef and they were trying to get rid of them. So they picked them all up, chopped them into tiny little pieces and threw them back in the water. But they didn't realize that as long as you have, I think, 3 legs on a starfish, they can regrow. So they literally just like quadrupled the population and it was really bad.
Yeah, there's always these stories. There was another one on, I forget what island it was, but they had these beautiful birds there but they had rats. I think it was rats or mice that were eating the eggs of these beautiful birds. So they couldn't repopulate. So like, all right, let's get cats. So they brought the cats and the cats decimated all the mice, but they ended up killing the birds as well. So it was yeah. It's like you just have to let nature, I think, take its course. You can't play God too much because it doesn't end up boding too well for us eventually.
Yeah. You can't foresee everything that's going to happen.
So I mean, as far as like learning, when I see, and I saw this as well when we were on the boat. There's so much like sea etiquette that is involved. Is this something that again, like you kind of learned on as you went? And also, like, did you have like times where you potentially fucked up and you just, my bad, man, I didn't know this was the etiquette type of situation?
Yeah, I can't think of any great examples in terms of etiquette. I mean, definitely learning on the sailboat, I messed up a ton and you learn. But there are some, I mean, if you just start reading about it, there's some great books and it talks all about that stuff. It's great. And some of this stuff is like, it's kind of old etiquette, outdated and stuff like that, but it still kind of applies and it's great to have that background. For example, like, I guess maybe you could talk about like flag signaling or something like that.
Or like etiquette in an anchorage. If you're like by yourself in a very secluded anchorage and it's a beautiful place, if you're coming up and somebody's already there, you probably don't want to go extremely close to them because they were in this beautiful place. They're there for a reason, to be by themselves. So if you go right next to them, they're going to be like, what the heck? You have all this other room and you come right next to us. And stuff like that. Majorly etiquette kind of goes in the anchoring realm of like people doing too close or people not anchoring the right way and then dragging into you, or people anchoring and then getting off their boat right away and not making sure that their boat is properly anchored so it doesn't drag into somebody else.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, a lot of this stuff is in some of these books that you could read if you're just learning how to sail or and stuff like that. Like you could get a good base for it in a lot of these books.
And one thing that
watch your guys' videos.
Yeah. And one thing we always try to make sure is that our boat always looks nice, because in a lot of places anchoring is free and they let you anchor wherever. But if people have a beautiful house on the water and they see a boat that has all this crap on it, they're going to cause a fuss and try to like change the laws in their town or not let these boats anchor, where for us that's like such a amazing thing that we're able to do. But if people aren't taking care of their boats or cleaning them up properly and they cause a scene, it kind of ruins it for everybody.
This has been a big problem in places like Florida and Georgia, where they're really trying to
eliminate,
restrict anchoring in these areas, and it makes it difficult for people like us, cruisers passing through. You are almost forced to pay to go to a marina or pay to go on a mooring, and sometimes that's not even an option. And if it is an option, especially in places like South Florida, it's really, really expensive. So.
Really?
Me and Sierra talk all the time about it, because you see these derelict boats or
that are half sunk.
So it kind of ruins it for the rest of people. So that is, I guess one piece of advice that we might have for someone getting into boating: just, make sure your boat is well maintained and it looks nice on the outside, and it doesn't have to be a Bristol finish, but just, keep it clean, keep it tidy,
and anchored as well as you possibly can do.
That's not, again, that's something I never even would have thought of until you mentioned it. It's one of those things that you can only know if you're living there.
Yeah. When you start hanging out with cruisers and, you start talking with them, you'll learn what are the issues and how can you be on the right side of those.
Yeah. It's kind of like having a scary house in the neighborhood where you're like, all the kids don't want to go anywhere near. Like, oh, that house is sketchy. I don't know. They don't know. They don't maintain the lawn, and they don't. There's all this crap out in the yeah. It's funny how humans are. We shy away from anything that looks kind of dinky and not kept, regardless if it's on land or water.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
So how much truth is it to the, I've heard this many times: red sky at night, sailor's delight; red sky in the morning, sailor's warning?
I mean, we say the saying all the time, but I never put it together whether it's true or not.
I think generally, more times than not, that saying has proven to be true.
Really?
But I don't know. It's not like 100% thing, and I don't know the reason why. I should know. Maybe because I don't know. Weather flows. I don't even want to put any wrong information out there. But I would say I have seen probably more times than not that saying is kind of accurate.
It's confirmed. It's confirmed, and it's accurate. Just leave it at that. Whoever made the quote, you were right.
Those salty sailors back in the day, they knew what they were talking about. That's all they.
Man, I think about it sometimes because you guys, you have you have iPad and Navionics and all these different tools and electronics and digital stuff, and back in the day they had 300 years ago, right? They had nothing. They were on these wooden boats with some cannons maybe on them, and I don't know, a few hundred slaves, and they didn't have all the technology. And they didn't really know. They kind of used the stars. They didn't know if a storm was brewing, north. They didn't know much of anything. They kind of just had the expertise that they had. But, how scary is it, do you think, would it be to just do that now with not really knowing anything, essentially?
It'd be wild, man. Yeah, because you're completely right. Once they got, if they navigated by the stars. And then you talk about some of the cultures in the Pacific, the ancient Polynesians, they navigated by, from what I understand, swell patterns. They can see how swells start to behave as it approaches an island, and they could kind of
really
where they were based on those swell patterns and stuff like that. But that's it. That's all they had is this nature around them. And I don't know what that would be like. I guess back then do you know what you're getting yourself into?
But at the same time, it's kind of scary how they got there. But we say all the time, can you imagine being the first person to find this beautiful place that we're in? They did a lot of work to get there, but they were also the first people to find some of the most beautiful places in the world. So I'm sure it was worth it for them. I hope.
Yeah. Good point. Because we're used to all this modern technology and navigation instruments and stuff like that, for us it'd be even more scary because there's something I always think about is redundancy. What if this thing broke? What if this iPad broke or whatever? it's something that sailors and boaters in general should definitely always have in their mind. I mean, we have our backup GPS and we have our compasses, and we know relatively where we are, and then we have paper charts. So if our digital stuff failed, we would have a general idea of where we are and what was around us.
But at the same time, how well can we read and navigate with those charts?
I know it's we don't practice so too often. So it would be scary.
I would love to see some, just as even a small example, because obviously technology has made all our lives substantially easier, but it's also a crutch in a way. Like me, for example, like if I don't have Waze, I don't know where I'm going with the car. Like yesterday we drove up to do some hiking about an hour and a half away, and we barely had any battery on the way back. I was like, oh shit, like we better stop at a gas station and buy like a USB cord, because we literally had no idea how to get back, right? And back in the day, I remember like, I lived in Africa as a kid, and my mom would be like the co-pilot, and she'd be sitting next to my dad with the map, and she'd be like looking at the map. All right, take a left here, take a right, and they would mess up, but eventually they got there, right? Like we always made it, and now I honestly don't know if I could do it. Like I just don't. Like I'm just so used to this machine telling me exactly where to go, and it's right 99% of the time. I don't think I could go back.
Same way.
It's so true. I mean, I find myself even in places I'm super familiar with, and I should know exactly where I'm going and how to get there. Like I still use Google Maps, and I don't really pay attention. And you're completely right. Like I don't know, some of these places where I should know where I'm going, I would get lost, in the car. But I wonder, does that, having that technology, does that free us up in other ways? And
100%, yeah, 100%. It definitely, it makes life easier for us, and then we can go and focus on other aspects of our life. But yeah, it's just I used to remember all my friends' phone numbers when I was a kid. Like, I don't know anyone. I don't even know my phone number. I forget it at times.
Billy, we've been together 6 years. He still doesn't know my phone number.
Yeah.
We're at this house in Maine, and they have a door code, and I memorized the door code. And she's like, how do you memorize this 10-digit door code? You don't memorize my phone. I was like, Sierra, I've had to enter this door code more times than I've ever had to dial.
Yeah. Exactly. I actually had a situation a few years back where I got locked out of my house, and I didn't have my everything was in the house, like my cell phone. Like I was like, oh no, what am I going to do? And I knocked on the neighbor's house, and she was like, sure, yeah, I can help you. And I was like, I was going to call my wife, and I was like, oh my God, I don't remember the number. I'm like, what am I like, I literally had I remember like 4 digits out of like the whole thing. I was like, shit, what am I going to do? So I ended up emailing her from this like foreign email that she had no idea. And I was like, this is Roy. I'm stuck outside. Don't reply back to this, but just if you could come home and just open the door. And after I think it was about an hour, I ended up actually sitting with the neighbor and getting to know her. So she was really nice. So that was that was a coincidence. But yeah, if you're stuck with and that's why I mean like a crutch, if you're stuck without this machine next to you, you're a liability. Like you can't get around.
It's true. We probably rely on it a bit too much, and especially in boating and sailing. I mean, I think, I didn't definitely encourage people to just have your redundancy, and maybe practice with those paper charts. There is people, a lot of guys will, they have this thing called a sextant, and that's what they use to navigate the star, using the stars and the sun with.
Yeah.
And people still practice that, using celestial navigation. We've always wanted to take a course, but we haven't yet. But that's something we'd like to do. But that's great redundancy, because then you literally need no technology if you know how to do that. You have your sextant and your paper chart, and you can plot where you are and where you're going, and problem solved.
It would be cool if someone did like because you have you have people that sail around the world. It would be cool if someone did that kind of old school with just no machinery, no navigation, just old school like they did, 300 years ago, 200 years ago.
You mean actually sailing around the world that way?
Yeah, just as as an expedition.
Yeah. People, I'm sure a bunch of people do on their own, but we don't see because they're probably just not
Yeah.
on YouTube and stuff.
Yeah.
There was a race recently because I think it was called the Golden Globe, and it was like a recreation of this race back in the '60s. It was uh, like the Golden Globe newspaper or something in the UK. I don't have all my facts straight on it, but they made this race, and it was in an attempt to get the first person to sail around the world solo. And they held this race, and I think there was like Motissier was the famous guy, and then I forget the other guy. Anyway, just recently, I think they recreated this race like a year or two ago, and I think they may have made it because you had to be in these old school boats with none of this fancy technology and stuff like that, and they may have had it where you weren't allowed to use conventional navigation. They might have had to use sextants. So
Wow.
I gotta look into that. I know like their boats were old school, like they didn't have like electronic autopilots and stuff like that. It was all like wind vane autopilots and things like that.
Dude, man, some people are brave,
Yeah,
really brave.
A lot of credit.
It's a different world. You got to have a unique set of skills doing that kind of.
Yeah, you have to be like top level, right?
Yeah, you really invested in
And
doing
like
things
really
that way.
mentally sane if you're doing that whole thing by yourself.
Or insane.
Yeah. That's true.
I remember a few years ago, I watched a documentary about this girl named Laura Deckers, I believe her name was, and she was like 14 or 15.
Yeah,
And I think she's the youngest woman to sail around the world, right? And on the one hand, I was just in awe of her achievement, but on the other hand, I'm like, don't know, like not that I am a parent, but yeah.
As her parent, I couldn't imagine like, okay, you can go sail around the world by yourself. Like, I'll stay here.
Yeah. And I think he got some flack for it, but I mean, she was fine at the end, but if that would have gone
Wrong.
or something would have happened, I don't know if he would have been able to forgive herself, her dad.
yeah. That's a tough thing. But on the other hand, like with that kind of thing, I mean, like if they're probably the whole family's probably so comfortable offshore on a sailboat, and they know they know the things you have to do, and and then Laura was probably brought up that way, and just it's ingrained in her that if she's going on deck, she needs to be clipped in, and that like all these little rules that you need to follow to keep yourself safe. So in that, if you look at it in that way, I wonder if it's just the same way that like a teenager might start driving, like as long as they follow these rules and they practice and you have confidence that they know what they're doing and they're safe. Like, maybe it's from us looking outside looking in, it's like a very uneasy thing, but for them, maybe it's just as simple as their teenager going out driving a car.
I do agree, but Mother Nature is
Well, that's the other thing.
crazy.
But again, with modern technology, like you can really track weather systems, and exactly where that boat is at all times from home, with the tracking and stuff like that. So, but if a storm did come, yeah, you're right. I mean,
all I know is I have zero plans in the future to do anything by myself on a boat. Like, just my company, I would go nuts.
Yeah, that's another thing. It's just it's like forget the, I mean, like if I look at myself when I was 15, I was, I was retarded. I shouldn't have been able to like no, you shouldn't give me any responsibility at 15. Like the fact that she could do that at the age of 15 with her. Just the responsibility, the maturity that she has to have, the strong-mindedness to be alone. I don't remember how much time the whole thing lasted, but it must have been, I don't know, months. And just to be by yourself majority of that time, that's very difficult. It's kind of like, even I don't know, when I'm thinking about stuff that I do, if I go hiking by myself, to have that clear mind for a few hours is fine. But when it gets a few days, a few weeks, a few months, and you're just by yourself, that's extremely difficult. More than probably like the actual technical aspect, just like you were right, Sierra, just like being by yourself for that extended period of time, extremely difficult especially at that age.
I think people probably don't realize that. Like the majority, if you're listening to this, when was the last time you were alone for, a day or two? Like actually alone, not even just alone, like by yourself in a coffee shop or whatever, just no contact, not even seeing anybody for 2 days.
Well,
like,
a lot of people probably get an idea of that now because a
Well,
lot of
that's
people have
true.
been stuck by themselves because of COVID. So
That's
I think
true.
a lot more people have an idea of what that is like.
But they're probably still with family, right? They're still with like someone in the household, or like, you know what? Not even alone. So when was the last time when was the last time you were bored, right? Like
Right.
bored doesn't exist anymore because you're on your phone straight away, like within a second. But think about being completely alone and then quote unquote bored, like not being able to be on a computer or on the phone. 99% of people just have no idea what that's like, you know?
Yeah, yeah, and it's difficult. I mean, that's how I felt when I first left Long Island on that small sailboat and I sailed down the coast, and I learned like that was my first time I've ever been alone, and I wasn't far off the coast. I wasn't open ocean, for more than a day or a day, but. I was by myself, like out in the Delaware Bay or the Chesapeake Bay or whatever. And I found like 2 days of it was okay. But by that third day, I really I needed to stop somewhere and just walk around town, like just be by. I didn't have to talk to anyone. I just needed to be by people. I was like, I don't know how these single-handed sailors do it for weeks and weeks and months at a time.
But even for you by yourself, you weren't, scared. You weren't, I mean, you had full confidence in yourself that, in your abilities.
I don't remember ever being scared. I knew that I was new to sailing, but I knew the basics enough to do it. And I did make mistakes, but when I made those mistakes, I didn't have time to be scared. I was more, I had something to do. I had to react quickly, so there was no time to be scared. But
And
yeah,
Billy's always been like that. When something that makes me scared, he's just like full on focused on whatever he needs to do to fix the reason that you would be scared.
right. Like if there's action to be taken, it's important to be level headed and to know that action and then to take it. And if there's not any action to be taken, then there's time to be scared. Like in our, we've been in lightning storms before. And in those scenarios, like once you take your sails down, if a big squall is coming, if there's no more action to be taken, like you just gotta understand that there's nothing you can do. So just try not to be scared. Just try not to think about it or whatever. That's what I tell myself, at least. There's literally nothing I can do. So, no point in being scared. Like, what's going to happen?
And I feel like it's a good analogy for life. I feel like if you do the work and if you have confidence that you did everything that you can to prepare for that moment, whatever moment that, that you're going through in life that potentially has fear involved in it or some consequences involved in it, as long as you did the work and you're confident, I feel like that's the most important, because you'll probably be able to, for lack of a better term, like breeze or sail through that. I had something similar in the beginning. Like when I started the podcast, the first episodes, I was definitely anxious and kind of scared to talk to people. And, but I felt like as long as I did good amount of research and I was prepared, like it would be fine. And first few episodes were horrific. I was really, really bad. And I'm still, it's still a work in progress. I'm still evolving. I'm sure 2 years from now I'll look back and I'll be like, oh, that was horrible, that was really bad. But so it's a work in progress. But as long as I feel like I do the work and the research and I'm confident, I feel like that's all I can do.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you're learning along the way, so you're just bettering yourself.
Yeah, and talking to cool people, so it's a win-win. I mean, do you guys have any big plans? Like, when you get the new boat, maybe going crossing the Atlantic or the Pacific, going to the Mediterranean or some other places?
I think the direction that we'd like to take with the new boat is we'll probably stay on the East Coast for a little bit to get familiar with it. And then we want to go towards the Western Caribbean, which is more like Panama,
Costa Rica,
Nicaragua. I mean, depending on the state of those countries at the time, but Panama definitely. And then even cross through the Panama Canal and go to the west side of Central America. from there, with jetty, it's really hard to cross that ocean because you get to like French Polynesia and Australia and New Zealand, and those are all countries where we can't realistically bring jetty because they either do not allow dogs straight up, or
you have to quarantine for like 2 months, and she's a rescue, so she doesn't do well without us in the first place. So it just wouldn't be fair to do that to her, and we wouldn't go anywhere without her. So we're just going to figure out places we can go with her in the meantime.
So yeah, so we're thinking like the west side of Central America, and then even possibly up the whole west coast of Mexico and the United States. And I mean, between all of that, we could literally spend 5 years doing that, and still not have seen everything.
Yeah. And we could always cross over the Atlantic and go to the Azores. There's places we have no solid plans, really.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like the other side of the Atlantic is beautiful. That's where I did a tiny bit of sailing, and that whole area is just absolutely beautiful.
We've heard amazing things about the Med and Greece and the Greek islands and stuff like that. Just amazing, and we'll get there someday.
Croatia, my friend, he keeps going to Croatia. He says it's unbelievable. So.
We've heard that as well. We met a guy from Croatia when we were down in the Caribbean, and he kept talking about it, and it just sounds like an amazing place.
Is that something you would, how do you mentally prepare for that, or you just do it as far as crossing the Atlantic?
Well, at this point, so when we were during COVID, we were in the USVIs and we were trying to get back to Florida. So we actually had to stay on the boat for 14 days, like in crossing from St. Thomas to Florida. Yeah. And generally a sail from the US over across the Atlantic takes around 14 days. So now I'm more mentally prepared, I think, because I can tell myself we've been alone on the boat, like offshore for that amount of time. But it's still a lot of planning and weather and safety.
That trip wasn't supposed to take that long. It would have taken 7 to 9 days, but we did have to anchor to wait out some weather. But we were still basically stuck on the boat, for the whole time.
When's the best time to do that? It's like as far as the year.
Going across from the U.S. across, I think they say that late. Springtime, I've heard, is the best because, once you get into late spring into summer, that begins hurricane season, June 1st or July 1st, depending on who you ask. But like I've heard, like around April, May is a good time to do that run. April, May. Again, that would take a lot more research on our to really know that for sure, and then exactly what route we would take. But yeah, I think it'd be really neat to. Have you ever heard of the Azores?
Yeah.
Yeah, right, basically in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. It would be amazing to check out that area. They're owned by Portugal.
Yeah, there's so many of these little islands. I mean, when you get there, they're not that little, but like on the map, you just don't even see them. They're just everywhere. Like I love looking at maps, and every time I'm like, oh wow, there's a whole like cluster of islands here that I've never even heard of.
Right, 100%. And then you're right. And then when you get there, like they're not that small. Like
no,
they're pretty big.
Yeah, and it just goes to like show you how big the actual places that you do see. Like some place like even like the U.S. The U.S. is humongous. Like I come from such a small country, and like to when I got to New York, and then when I went to like I don't know California or some of the like Utah, it's like I've seen. I go to one place and then I'm like, dude, I haven't even seen like 0.5% of the state yet. I could literally, I don't know, keep traveling to the same state my whole life and probably not see everything. It's just that big.
It's so true. Yeah. Yeah. Same with these islands down in the Caribbean. Like we saw like barely any of it. It's almost disappointing. I mean, I'm so in the places we have seen, but it's like, should we have seen more? Like we were there, like, it's hard to see everything.
No, there's so much. Yeah, that's I think one of my problems. Like I always want to see more, and I'm like, I think at some point you have to realize, all right, you have to like prioritize where you want to go and what you want to see, because you're not going to be able to see everything in your life. It's just not possible.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, just prioritize it. That's a good way to go about it.
Yeah. Well, guys, I want to thank you so much. I had a blast. I really enjoyed this conversation. Thanks so much.
Hey, this is awesome, Roy. Thanks so much for having us on. It's
Yeah,
great to
thank
meet you,
you.
and it was awesome to chat with you.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Where can people find you guys on social media? What's the preferred places?
You can generally find us anywhere. Tula's Endless Summer. So that's YouTube, Instagram, our website, tulasendlesssummer.com. And yeah, where else are we? Billy's been tinkering in the TikTok world, but
Oh, yeah. I feel like if you're over 30, which I am, like I just can't get like Snapchat, TikTok, like I can't do it. I don't understand it. I'm too old.
When we hang out with like our friends' kids and stuff, I just quiz them on these young, these platforms.
Yeah.
Hey, what's the new one?
Yeah. Well, I'll make sure to put all the channels in the show notes, make it easy for everyone to find. And guys, make sure you do follow them. They have really awesome videos, and maybe you'll be inspired to go do something similar. You never know.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you, Roy.
Yeah, I had a pleasure. We'll be in touch. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.